how INTPs see the 16 personalities. ENTPs. INTPs see ENTPs as the cocaine versions of themselves. INTPs admire the mental speed and agility that ENTPs possess. They're the perfect people to get them out of intellectual ruts and throw new ideas their way. INTPs see ENTPs as having faster minds than theirs, but they know that they can think deeper. I've seen debates between these two types where the INTP will bring up a point and the ENTP will bat it away effortlessly. Then, the INTP will ponder and interrogate the subject, often privately, and then, sometimes up to days later, will return with another point or come back, which the ENTP will also swat away. Except, not quite as quickly this time. This process then repeats until eventually the INTP has actually either stumped, impressed, or shocked the ENTP. Sometimes all three. It's unfair to both types to make this distinction one of breadth versus depth. Both types can do both when needed. It's more about the speed at which they'll move on from things. INTPs see ENTPs as being just like them, except prioritizing that lightning-fast dance between ideas, whereas INTPs have the mental grit to stick with an idea or subject until they discover or uncover things that ENTPs miss. Therein lies the salient difference between them. INTPs, incomprehensibly, have a massively high and low opinion of themselves, simultaneously, seeing themselves as usually the smartest person in any given room, yet chronically doubtful of their own capabilities and intellect. It makes no sense. It's paradoxical. ISFJs. INTPs see ISFJs as having grandparent vibes, whilst also being able to hang with them intellectually. ISFJs are paragons of knowledge, wit, and wisdom, so INTPs will sense a kindred spirit right away, albeit in a different package. Mature versions of these types will resemble each other. That TI and SI skeleton they have in common gives them a similar approach. It's like a backbone they share. So INTPs will resonate with the ISFJ's desire for clarity, precision, and solidified knowledge. They'll bond over this. It's that need to know and to acquire some semblance of certainty to the extent that's ever possible in life. INTPs will see ISFJs as more down-to-earth, realistic, and practical versions of themselves in many ways. They might see them as overly rigid in certain respects, especially when they are entertaining more out-of-left field and speculative ideas, but that complementary affinity that they have for creature comforts, routine, stability, and consistency, both in logic and life in general, often overcomes that. ESFJs. INTPs will often see ESFJs as people who are living life in completely the wrong way. These two types are the alleged golden pair in the socionics typing system. In practice though, INTPs will not see ESFJs as a straightforward, complementary type, at least not at first or without work. INTPs, when interacting with a mature ESFJ, will see someone who appreciates them. Simple idea, but not always easy to come by. INTPs will see ESFJs as pathologically social, to the point where it's a diagnosable condition. But they will also reciprocate appreciation towards them for their charm, their ease, their ability to bring people out of their shells, especially INTPs. INTPs will find all extroverts obnoxious at various points, but ESFJs are warm, smooth, and accommodating. It's a less aggressive kind of extroversion. ESFJs, despite some of the annoying online descriptions they get sometimes, are curious people. Curious people who are curious about people. Invariably, if they meet in circumstances conducive to them connecting, INTPs will see ESFJs as people who take an interest in them. After all, why wouldn't they? INTPs are interesting. ENTJs. INTPs see ENTJs as fully realized or fully evil versions of themselves. ENTJs are the so-called shadow type of INTPs. They have the same types of functions, thinking, intuition, sensing, and feeling, in the same order, except all of the functions are reversed in terms of whether they are introverted or extroverted. People theorize that a type can be in their shadow in certain situations, often when they are stressed. So I think that INTPs see ENTJs as aggressive, action-oriented, and forceful versions of themselves. There's that same NT flavor, but pointed in a different direction. The synergy between these two types will often be intellectually electric. Advisor and implementer, king or queen, and power behind the throne. INTPs will respect the ENTJ skill set and recognize shades or shadows of their own within it. INTPs will see ENTJs as people they can work with. ISFPs. INTPs see ISFPs as fellow introspectors, albeit of a very different persuasion. TI and FI have a similar nature, independent, individualistic, happy to stand alone in defiance. So INTPs will see ISFPs as a similar species, but different breed of iconoclast. INTPs will often kind of disagree with the reasoning that ISFPs cite for their choices, but will respect the fervour with which they'll fight for them. INTPs will also see ISFPs as having similarly high standards for their craft, their work, their hobbies. That commitment to living by their own standards is a shared trait, and INTPs will see that similarity very quickly. ESFPs. INTPs will see ESFPs as wild creatures, great to observe, but at a safe distance. This dynamic can become a clash quite quickly because ESFPs are forceful people, either by direct intent or by accident. INTPs will see them as people who can easily overstep boundaries in a prodding and poking kind of way. It's entirely possible that INTPs will feel aggressed upon by ESFPs. INTPs devalue SE, which is the dominant function of ESFPs. So often, they'll see ESFPs as just kind of doing stuff for no particular reason. However, INTPs can also see ESFPs as energizers, dynamos who can shake INTPs out of their inertia and reinvigorate them. INFPs. INTPs will see INFPs as fellow travellers on the same path to a different destination. INTPs will see INFPs using lots of the same tools and having similar preferences in how they want to live day to day. INTPs have an unusual balance when it comes to variety and predictability, and INFPs are the other type who share this. An INTP and INFP can be sitting in the same room together, day after day, doing the same routines, habits, and patterns, yet be in totally different worlds from one moment to the next. INTPs will see INFPs as endearingly imaginative and non-intrusive, which is actually how they'll be seen in return as well. So they have complementary energies. INTPs will admire the creative force that can be summoned up by INFPs, despite their typically gentle and unassuming demeanour. This, again, speaks to their own nature. ISTJs. INTPs will see ISTJs as fellow problem solvers and lovers of knowledge. INTPs are precision people, as much as they are big ideas people, so they'll hold ISTJs in high esteem for their similarly exacting, detail-oriented nature. Both types are two of the most rational and logical. This will be a great point of connection. INTPs will see ISTJs as very intellectually capable and in possession of an excellent drive, dedication, and work ethic. If both parties are independent agents, so to speak, things can be great. If, however, they have to work together closely, the structured nature of ISTJs might be seen as rigid often by INTPs. The ISTJ, in turn, will see the INTP as disjointed, chaotic, and even outwardly lazy. ESTJs. INTPs will see ESTJs as being masters of things that INTPs don't really care about. The famous example I often think about of these two types existing in a complementary relationship is when Eric Schmidt, an ESTJ, was called in to be the CEO of Google, because the founders, Sergey Brin and Larry Page, the latter of which I think is an INTP, needed adult supervision. So I think that's how INTPs see ESTJs, as adult supervision. INTPs get as much done as ESTJs, it's just that you don't see it, because lots of it, well, most of it, is in their head. So INTPs will often see ESTJs as being busy with things that aren't worth spending that much time on. It's the kind of things that INTPs neglect. So, based on that, INTPs might also see ESTJs as people that they could have a synergistic relationship with. An ESTJ could benefit from an INTP advisor. An INTP could benefit from an ESTJ implementer. ESTPs. INTPs will see ESTPs as people who are often trying to assert some kind of power over them, or push them in some way. In socionics, this is referred to as the supervisor relationship, where the ESTP is the supervisor and the INTP the supervisee. This comes from ESTPs being excellent with TI, the INTP's dominant function, and even better with SE, which is the INTP's weakest function. So when ESTPs are being their natural selves and just acting on autopilot, INTPs will feel like they're being prodded and poked in a weak spot. ESTPs won't always even realise that they're having this effect. So there's a really strong chance of a clash between these two types. That being said, I think INTPs will admire the ESTP's ability to be movers and shakers, and if an INTP has an ESTP at their disposal, so to speak, they can be a useful asset. This sense of being pushed by the ESTP can also be positive. ESTPs can push INTPs to move out of their comfort zone, to be more bold, outgoing, and aggressive towards the world. ISTPs. INTPs will see ISTPs as their proverbial brothers from another mother. INTPs will have a naturally strong affinity towards ISTPs. They share a common outlook, a united view of what constitutes a sensible and logical way to interpret things. So INTPs will see ISTPs as people who speak the same language as them. Given this, INTPs will also see ISTPs as people who they can emulate to a degree. ISTPs can teach them to be a bit more action-oriented and avoid the trappings of inertia. INTPs, in turn, can teach ISTPs to entertain more offbeat perspectives and be more mentally explorative for its own sake, without there needing to be a pragmatic reason always. INTPs will see ISTPs as the brains plus practicality combo to go along with their own brains plus more brains combo. INFJs. INTPs will see INFJs as people they can create brain babies with. I have thought for a long time that INTPs and INFJs can mistype as the other much more often than is talked about. They're both introverts, highly intuitive, contemplative, philosophical, intellectual, and wise advisors. INTPs will see INFJs as a perfect sounding board for ideas, different kinds of ideas, as well as someone to learn from, especially when it comes to people. Both of these types analyze people in huge depth, hence their interest in typology. But INFJs can put those insights into practice much better than INTPs, so INTPs can learn a lot from them in that regard. I think that INFJs will relish and jump upon the chance to fully lean into their cerebral, academic, and analytical side. This is exactly what interactions with INTPs will offer them. So INTPs will see INFJs as fellow wizards, sages, and insightful introverts, similar in demeanor but different in their methods and area of focus. ENFJs. INTPs will see ENFJs as people who possess enough substance to justify their absurdly overpowered style. INTPs typically have an aversion to people who are too charming and smooth. It can come across as slimy to them, but more so, they think, if this person is making use of such an approach, are they overcompensating? So INTPs will see ENFJs as people who might be BSing their way through life at first, but ultimately are highly intellectual and in an intuitive way, which INTPs will resonate with. Intuition is probably what these two types will connect on, since both types are good at both kinds of intuition. I think that INTPs will see ENFJs the same way they see INFJs, except there is a bigger chance of a clash in this case, since certain ENFJs, or ENFJs in certain moods, can be big and overwhelming personalities. INTJs. INTPs will see INTJs as intellectual partners in crime. These two types are very different and very similar somehow. INTPs see INTJs as siblings separated at birth, then raised under very different environmental conditions. There is a shared commitment to reason, rationality, and the championing of truth, but a difference in what they intend to do with those things. INTJs usually have more of an outward focus with their thinking. They feel driven and compelled to manifest their insights in some way. INTPs, on the other hand, are happy with their status as fonts of knowledge and don't mind that imbalance of knowing much more than they let on. INTPs will admire the work ethic and dedication that INTJs often show. They'll also enjoy the fact that INTJs are one of the few types who will truly understand the value of what INTPs have to offer and might just strategize and act upon the INTP's insights, making these two types great intellectual partners. ENFPs. INTPs will look upon ENFPs with admiration and confusion in equal measure. INTPs and ENFPs have any as a big thing in common. So INTPs will see ENFPs as the embodiment of pure and unbridled creative energy, which they love. However, they will often be perplexed by what ENFPs put this creative energy in service of, i.e., whatever the hell they want. This tendency to follow their passions and preferences, first and foremost, can make them seem much more random and idiosyncratic. And if INTPs see you that way, you know you must be extreme. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see me do it from the viewpoint of each of the 16 types, then the best way to let me know is to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Getting that feedback is the best sign that a video has gone down well. This YouTube channel also has a Discord server, which is kind of like an underworld, where the various types get together to plot an uprising. So feel free to join the revolution using the link below.